and not so much a Q&A, but a discussion, because my guess is that you'll have insights, obviously, that I don't have, and a lot of experience with your own clients, if what I say resonates. I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'm really happy to be here, and despite the fact that I'm paralytically shy, I feel very blessed to have met you, never mind standing up here even, but to have met you this weekend's been really important for me, and I feel a little bit called to step up into something bigger. I feel like I'm wearing shoes that are a bit too big for me right now, but I think I can grow into them. I want to tell you the tale of the two barbers. They're two Italian brothers, twins, and they grew up in a barbering family. I don't even know if that's a word. And their father was a barber, and their grandfather was a barber, and they loved everything about it. They loved it, loved it. They loved the community of it, the smell of it. They loved the whole barbering thing. Very proud of their genealogy. And so there was no question in their mind that they were going to be barbers when they grew up. And they became teenagers, and it became time for them to follow that. And so they went off to apprentice, and they came back, and basically, boom, they were ready to be barbers. And I'm going to tell you what happened to each of them, and I'm wondering if you can relate to one of these stories. Or I also wonder if you know some of your clients that can relate to one of these barbers. So barber number one sits down with a piece of paper and says, okay, what do I need to start a barber shop? I need an office about yay big, and I need a bunch of chairs and a sink with a stupid hole in the middle, and I need subscriptions to terrible magazines, and I need a candy cane pole out the front, etc., etc. So he buys all that stuff, he gets his barber shop, and he sets up, and he's ready to go. Barber number two stops for 5 minutes to take in what the brother was doing. And he thought just a little bit forward, and he thought, I'm going to be so proud to be a barber, but I have to admit, now that I've seen his little shop, I'm not sure if I'm going to be happy being stuck in that small space for the next 40 years. And it led to a bit of a conundrum inside himself. The other thing he thought of is that one of the things he would miss the most by doing that is hanging out with old people. He absolutely adored old people and used to love going to visit the grandmother nearly every day up the road and have cookies and tea with her and chat. And he had this real natural way with old folks. They loved him because he listened to them. And he thought, I would hate to give that up. And then a thought occurs to him. Old people have hair too. Some of them do. And he thought the grandmother who can't barely get out of the house to go get her hair done. And he thought, geez, maybe I could travel around to old folks and cut their hair. Maybe I could go to the old folks' home and cut hair there for the day. So he sat down and he did the math on it, and he thought, Jesus, this could work, and it's not going to cost me anything to try it. All I need is scissors and a comb. And so that's what he did. Now fast forward 20 years. And at the end of a long day, barber number one takes the open sign and turns it to closed and locks the door and comes back, and he's weary and he's tired, and he sits down on a chair, and he's got his head in his hands, and he's thinking back over his life. He's thinking of all his children's birthdays that he missed because the damn open sign had to go on every day. He's thinking with regret about how the fact his wife had always wanted to take a huge big trip somewhere for a month, somewhere in the world that he could never do it. They never did it. And he's thinking about all of these things, and he's also tired of being stuck in the same spot. And he sits down on the chair, his head in his hand, and he said, I guess barbering wasn't for me. Fast forward, barber number two. So he does this business, and at the end of the day, after 20 years, this is what's happened. He's been going around cutting these old folks' hair. It's been a great business for him. He made pretty good money at it also because he had no overheads. He could come and go as he pleased, take whatever days off that he wanted, and he got to hang out with old folks. But something else astonishing happened, and that he's so gifted with old folks, and he noticed that they had so much to share with the world, and they weren't getting a chance to tell anybody about it. And so what happened was he started collecting some of the gems of wisdom that these old folks were telling him. And he eventually had a coffee with somebody, and he came up with the idea, I'm going to put these into a book. So he went to the local book store, and they agreed to help him out and whatnot, so he put out this local book. And it did really well in the local community, and plus all the old folks made all their families buy it and stuff. And so he did really well with it, but because he had collected such gems since the book was published, he thought, I want to have something a little more active here. So with a bit of help from a friend, set up a blog. And at the end of some day, at the end of a week, he would share some of these gems of wisdom. And he even started doing some little videos of really, really special old folks that had something fucking cool to say. And he would put this on, right? Now, in the 20 years, what's happened is that the book, the blog, and associated bits and bobs of his business earned him way more money than the barbering ever did. But he still barbers because he likes it. Right? And it's an excuse to get together with these people, right? And so at the end of the day, after 20 years, he sits down with his head in his hands, and he says, oh my God, barbering was so for me. Barbering wasn't the issue. It was the lifestyle was the issue. So barber number one had the exact same skill, but set it up differently. And I would love to ask you, what are your thoughts on this story? Do you find that lots of people follow barber number one's path? So I was a commercial diver for 10 years. I won't go into it, but very unhappy with it. The two things I hate most are being cold and alone. So I chose to be 80 feet under the Atlantic by myself, using my skinny ass off. So then the second choice I made was I'd love to do something I like. All right. So the first thing, in all fairness, I think we often end up into things just because we end up into them. We don't necessarily choose them. And suddenly, fucking 10 years, we're gone. Has that ever happened to anybody? You know, you get it? Okay. I'm sorry, I'm a maritimer, and I swear when I get excited. So then I ended up, long story, but I ended up into Reiki, alternative health. It was a big departure for me, but I absolutely loved it. And here's what happened. 6 years into it, I was unhappy again, and I didn't know why. And I thought there was something wrong with me. And I thought, I chose what I like to do. What the hell is wrong? And then that lasted for years till I figured it out. And I realized I'm a gypsy, and I'm trapped 9 to 5 in a small clinic. So I was barber number one. And once I realized it, I took 3 months and completely changed my business around. So I do Reiki 2 days a month now, and the rest of the time I'm a gypsy. I'm traveling around doing workshops, and half the time I'm bringing my kid and my wife with me. So there's no more trying to figure out family time and personal time and what. It's just a beautiful ecosystem now. I don't say all that to brag. I say that because I'm incredibly astonished that I was able to pull it off. And so